What's up, dudes? Caliber is back with not only a new intro, but a first place deck profile for my one and only beloved Mitsurugi. This is a deck that I picked up back in March and have been soloing pretty much for the entire time I've been playing Modern up until this point. I have found no real merit to change. Of course, there's brickiness, and I have considered other decks such as Sky Striker in the meantime, but today is a good piece of evidence that this deck not only still has what it takes to win tournaments, but one strength that I have had with this deck is that it is not only budget, but it is highly customizable. Pretty much, the reason this game has stayed fresh for me for playing the same deck, despite it being about 6 or 7 months now, is the fact that Mitsurugi is very, very easy to tech in and out cards. There's also many different kind of styles and builds that you can play it as, such as a pure board breaker, kind of using the Radiant Typhoon package to draw a bunch of cards for consistency. Otherwise, you play something standard that does have a good amount of consistency, but the hand traps and engine you choose to play are kind of what makes or breaks your tournament experience. So I'm gonna get into it because this is pretty standard. I could talk about this deck all day, but I do kind of want to make another video one day talking just about like the strengths of playing budget, simply because this has not only been one of the most fun years for me to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but the fact that like I have been able to make a pretty solid investment that was loaded to the ground, as opposed to like when I first was playing Branded, where this one was just kind of like $10 and I already had some staples lying around, but the structure decks came with them anyway. And the fact that like it's been so long and my deck has stayed relevant, I appreciate this deck not getting slaughtered on the ban list. But yeah, shout out to Chip, New Field Center, and then shout out to the Foolish Burial Goods that I pulled out of the OTS winter pack. So 41 main, we'll start with the Mitsu stuff first. 1 Haba, 1 Murakumo, 2 Murakumo, sorry, and then 1 Futsu. These are the rituals you play. I was playing 3 Murakumo for a little bit there, and I kind of miss it, but this deck does suffer from inconsistency. And unfortunately, I was trying to pick cards that I needed the least, and the 3rd Murakumo was the one that came up, despite me always really wanting to see a ritual and a ritual spell, or a way to get to one or either. Now, I am playing 1 card to supplement that, but one problem is definitely still Droll, unfortunately. So you have to be very careful on not only how you're deck building to address that issue if you just have too many redundant cards, which kind of will be fixed when the new stuff drops, like this Blink and the Armageddon ritual. But moving on, we've got 2 Aramaso, only 2 because I am playing a 3rd card you will see in a second that I'm back on that fills the slot of the Aramaso but gives it the tutor ability to either find a spell if I've already got monsters, which a lot of the deck you have a lot more ways to get to monsters than you do spells. 1 Kusanagi and 1 Saji as engine requirements. For the past couple of weeks I've been going to locals. I've just been seeing Kusanagi plus trap glued to the hand. It's crazy. Now I do side the trap out depending on the matchup, but that's if I know that I can kill them. Otherwise, I do not want to get in a grind game with anything, especially if I side out the trap. The 1 Wosu, because this not only helps you search in the grind game, so you don't run out of targets, but especially against Sky Striker when they only establish 1 monster, being able to search this threatens so much, because if they don't proactively use their rows as soon as you have this in hand, as soon as it is no longer an open game state and priority's gone back to you, you just inherently tribute this. Then we've got the Manju of the 10,000 hands. This is the card that I was talking about that I'm back on. Now, there are a lot of risks when it comes to deck building, such as like, do I play pre-pep with 1 mirror or 2 mirror? And it did happen to me today where I saw one of the mirrors with the pre-prep in hand, but thankfully it didn't matter. Then there's playing like Manju despite you not being able to tribute this with cards like Mitsurugi Prayers, or are you even able to search under Droll, and is this redundant? And another thing is Impulse, which you'll see later in the deck, which is the only conflictment. Typically, Manju gets sided out, so it's not the biggest deal. Going first, it's not a problem because you're usually activating it first, then if Impulse comes up, it's pretty much after you've already used it. Onto the Mitsurugi spells, we've got 3 of the Ritual. 3 because, again, I have a lot of monsters, so I just want to see at least one of these and a monster or a way to get to a monster. That way the Droll still doesn't matter, because if I see one of these, I still can play. 3 of the Prayers. Of course, 1 mirror because 2 is bricky, although I would play 2 if I had the space for it. Unfortunately, with how I had to diversify this deck list for a case tournament a while ago, that I didn't do too bad in. It was just a bubble. But I said I need this card. I need this deck to be slim. I'm not going past 41. That the Mirror and the Murakuma were the cards that had to come out. And then this is what I'm talking about consistency, where it gets redundant. And I did see a hand today where thankfully I wasn't punished for it. A draw would have definitely hurt, but it was like pre-prep with Mirror in hand and Ragged Records. And I'm like, I have every way to get to a monster, but if he has Droll here, I just lose on the spot. So definitely risky sometimes the way you have to play this deck, but of course the pre-prep is in there to supplement because it's just such a good card, and like people respect it. It is searching 2. It just generates so much value. Also, it allows you to get another Mitsurugi search in the combo uninterrupted, meaning if you didn't have to go find the mirror, that's like another prayers. Not that it, like if you played it, it really doesn't matter, but sometimes you do have to make awkward lines where you use the prayers in your hand, but you don't have the follow-up one. So it's like on their turn, they might not know it if they haven't been paying attention very well, but you don't have the prayers on their turn. Purification. Sometimes I side it out, but typically not, because again, once you go full Mitsu, this isn't like a wombo combo deck. It's like, what are you going to do if you don't kill them that turn? You need to find a way to like establish your board presence, and that's the only way to do it, really. 3 Perulia. The reason I'm on Perulia instead of Fua in the main is because with Rolad running around, Fua is just too high rolly, and it misses a couple decks out there that can also pretty much play low to the ground, where at the very least Perulia is guaranteed value out of any matchup. Going against Rolad, you can use the Perulia preemptively to some point at their turn. If they tag out for a ritual, you can you can draw. 3 Ash and 2 Droll. People are on and off about Ash, and I get it, but the problem with this deck is I was trying to decide what non-engine do I play, and so I'm missing a lot of the stuff that I start out with this deck. And unfortunately, while Ash isn't like stellar, it's also just not a bad card. It's a little worse. It's definitely a little worse than KT. But this is just something you need to play in the deck with how I built it, and we'll talk about it a little more in the side deck. But the idea here is you're going to draw cards in this deck, and you need to draw live cards because you just really can't play the game when you've done the Mitsu combo, but you only have like Mitsu consistency cards at the end of your turn. You need to go find non-engine. So after you've deck thinned, you want to try to find cards like Droll and Lockbird, even though it can hurt your turn. At the very least, if they don't play, but you established a board, you should be fine on your crackback. Perulia, because it's low high roll, and this can just be used if you draw it or have it as a level 4 body, which comes up in the draw combo. And Ash, of course, because this is just always a great card to draw into. You can probably use one for Fua or something pretty comfortably to lock him out of the 1 or 2 draws, and then draw into a second one. And then, of course, the biggest merit to play this deck, though it's not needed, is Dominus Impulse. I'm glad I've gotten my hands on these. I understand that a lot of this deck just looks very budget, but then other parts of it don't. So I don't want to like preach the message that like, you know, I'm doing so well and I'm watching my wall at the same time. But what I will say is that like 100% you could play this list without this card and it would work perfectly just fine. Not to say that this isn't a powerful card either, but like against KT it also sucks. And against Rolad it feels hit or miss. Like it's great, but like at the same time too, it's just like them not playing is not the same as you not playing, because they can slow you down with hand traps and then you just have the sorry about the shakiness. I'd like to work on that at some point, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, Rolad can play mid-range, it can play low to the ground because it has cards that generate value every single turn, where you kind of don't if you get stopped. And another non-engine card that I wanted to see when I drew into more cards was Fallen the Virtuous. This is what I decided to play in the deck as like, what is another card here that's like good in most matchups, serviceable at the very least, and like isn't dead half the time. And then Fallen in the Virtuous just made sense, as kind of mid as it feels right now. Also holding it for like the Rolad Trap tag out is pretty good right now. Using that for Mind Shuffle, using this is like, I'm going to just try to pick apart your end board, like get rid of a Zalin or something. Fallen is a card that can always be played when you draw into it through your regular combo. And then, of course, in the grind game, it just keeps resetting itself, which is amazing. And then this is like your Trinity. Normally, this would be like a cross out or something, but Pot works as another Trinity piece. These are just like 3 busted spell cards that if you see one of them, you're probably doing very good in winning that game. Prosby, of course, can be very difficult because if you open this or have to use it, you're locked out of the draw combo. But there's other ways you can play that supplement the way you build your board. And you kind of have to do something a little toxic or unfair to make sure that you're not just going to die because they played through Mitsu cards and it's the only engine you play. All right, on to the extra deck so we can actually talk about the theory, which is, it's nothing different, but how you play it, has kind of changed. So Dynamondo, of course, as a one of. I am not playing Extrav, if you notice, so that makes the deck building a lot easier too. Missing the draw two was cool, it's great, but you can just draw other cards and you can just draw like not dead cards by banishing pretty key extra deck pieces. So now you can actually play a huge toolbox here. So Dynamondo, Dark, Azalea, IP, and SP. This package is like, I'm so sorry for the shakiness. This package basically just says, I've established bodies, and now I'm going to find ways to pick apart your board. The Dark threatens a lot of decks because there are a lot of good Dark monsters out right now, like other Mitsurugi players out there, Sky Striker cards to interrupt the Ray from tagging out and coming back to the field. I went against an Orcus player today, and I used it to steal his Dingirsu, so that was pretty cool to just non-targeting send. And then all the other bodies, it's like, you establish a lot of like BS bodies, like you can't really convert them unless you play cards like this, and you want to be able to like, it's great that you don't have Extrav because you're not like only getting like one remove off of like one Dynamondo or one SP because they weren't banished. It's like you can go Dark takes something, make Azalea, make Little Knight, or make Dynamondo after. Like they kind of climb into one another. Like, yeah, you're trading down on bodies. You're not making any, like a link 3, then a link 4. So you're not climbing, but you're getting rid of bodies, so the value's still there. And then the last link is the Haggard Lizard Dose. This is a pretty cute tech option, and I use it almost every single game that I play because in an uninterrupted combo where I'm like, all right, you're holding on to stuff. I'm going to need on-engine. You establish this after you've made another card in the deck, and you just banish an Aramasa because you either have another one or it's never going to come up again because you can just search with the rituals. You draw a card, and it just gets you deeper into the deck, especially once you've decked in for all your Mitsurugi cards. You should be seeing non-engine from that point. Of course, it can create redundant hands, but like that's the RNG of drawing cards. But also just in theory, it's never bad to be down on cards. Like crackback pieces, they're afraid, whatever. This is the other card that I was gonna allude to, which is Dugaris. It's part of the rank 4 package that I play, which is Code Igniter and Baguska. So if you have to lead with Prosby, or like you've been hand trapped, or like you just know that the dude is about to wombo on you, you need to establish Baguska because this is just going to put everything in check and slow the game down tremendously. He has to play to out at first, which might means he commits, so he won't be able to kill you that turn if your board is turned back on, or you can slow him down with hand traps, or Baguska just puts him in check completely and says you didn't play. Dugaris is the typical thing that comes up in 80% of your combos. Uninterrupted with a pretty good hand, like lead with Habakiri. At some point, you'll have all 3 rituals. You use the prayers to tribute off the last ritual you made to search out a level 4 if you don't have like a dead Molcharmi in hand. And then you take the 800 to special out a rank 4 or a level 4 body. Make this, use it to detach to draw 2, then link this off with one other Mitsurugi or reptile, I should say. Then you can make the Lizard Dose, and that can banish one other card to get you 3 draws in total. Of course, you're discarding, but there's cards like Ragged Records that you can use to skillfully chain block stuff like Ghost Bell if you sequence it right and your board doesn't have anything but rituals. And that pretty much makes up for your dead like discard fodder. The Code Igniter, it does come up. I still have yet to use it, but there are situations where I'm like, I am definitely thinking really hard about, do I like use these 2 bodies to like find a way to ritual something? Because sometimes one of your Mitsurugi rituals gets stopped, be it from hand or deck. On to another little spicy tech option, which is why I'm glad I have the deck space back. I didn't want this deck profile to be long, but there were some things that I needed to talk about, so it is what it is. Here is the higher rank package, which is you only either are going to hard make the Titanic or the Hope Harbinger, I get that wrong all the time, or the Draglubion. The 2 Mitsurugi rituals will get you there. Hope Harbinger is a great board to make, even though one of your rituals gets stuck. Typically you can part without the Habakiri. This is a very proactive board, so it says you either have a board breaker or like I want to negate the first spell that I know is going to come up. This doesn't detach, unfortunately, so again, it's usually stuck under there. but it's not a big deal if you don't put one of the useful monsters under it. Jaglubion is the other rank 8 option. This is cool because it's an OTK button. I don't want to get to grind games if I don't have to, because I don't play like the most oppressive deck. But Jaglubion pretty much says, I'm going to summon a 9,000 attack dragon, and if you have nothing here, like a Bestial or something, you lose on the spot. This is a great option specifically for Branded. That is one matchup you cannot afford to get into a grind game with, unless you slow them down so much that they just didn't play, which happens because the deck is more hand trap focused now than starters, because of the sheer amount of like dump to grave for cost kind of cards and, you know, their end phase, main phase 3 BS that they're doing. You need a way to kill them that turn. Do not get into a grind game. Do not let them have more time to establish more just free presence, because you will never match them in that game. So that's, at least in theory, why you play that. Then speaking of Branded, here is the Fallen and Virtuous package. You have 3, so you play 3. There's a world where you can cut 2 down to play like another card or something. I don't know what you'd play, but this works for now. And then this is a great, you know, turn 3 crackback piece, since you have the other Fallen and Virtuous. That's a remove, and then this is another remove. And then onto the side deck, we'll make this real quick. Fua, because like I said, it's high rolly, and I prefer Perulia right now, especially against Rolad. 2 Golem, 1 Shifter, playing Shifter in the side instead of the main, because it could be very hit or miss, especially depending on how you have to play. If you don't have a Grave, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but like, you better win that game, and so I don't want to take that chance very often. Plus, it conflicts with some cards. 1 Harpies and 2 Evenly. You could argue that this isn't needed, but my locals does have 1 or 2 Sky Striker players that play pretty consistently. So no hate, Tyson, but like, this is kind of for you. But Sky Striker comes up often. It's a fan favorite deck. So I'm playing it specifically for that matchup and really nothing else, because I don't want to have to go to my battle phase to waste it on Evenly. Plus, Sky Striker does have a bunch of chainables, and that's a grindy deck anyway. The Evenly won't like cripple them for the rest of the game. I don't own Pot of Sloth, and if you don't own Pot of Sloth, Tactics Thrust is a budget option in the big 2026. If you don't have that card, and it is a good card, you don't need it. Play this. This searches. Monster effects are pretty common being activated on your turn. There's ways to proc it too, of course. With like, you know, your Wosu threatens them. You know, Rolad's always doing Rolad things. And then going first cards, we have what I could play for going first, which is the Solemn Warnings and the Judgment. Now, these could be accusations and a judgment, but my theory was I don't own them, obviously. They're expensive. So another budget card that you can just play. You don't want to use the Purification on like a BS, right? Like if they normal summon like a Ray, try to use the effect. Don't use Purification on that. You're using Purifications for the like board breaker, for like the Duster or the Lightning Storm that they have. That's a given. Then you're protecting cards like Solemn Warning if you see this instead of Judgment that say you're going to try to special summon, and I have a way that you cannot react to that stops that completely with a measly cost of 2,000. And then, of course, Judgment being the one of, you draw 3 cards in your deck after you thin. You have a good chance of seeing one of these. So setting this along with the Purification means you have to do some pretty insane stuff to get through that, plus the rest of my board and any other non-engine I'd be holding on to. And then Different Dimension Ground, because this is a thrust-built deck, and this is the one great option that you can play. It's mid, depending on what you play, such as the Mirror or Sky Striker, though they do care about their graves, so I still cite it in. But I know there's like another trap that they play to like cut off the levels for like KT and stuff, but that's pretty much the deck. I appreciate you guys sticking around. This was a bit of a longer one than I anticipated, but I just wanted to talk about some of the choices and preach the message that anybody with like $30 basically can go to a locals and win. Anyway, appreciate it. God loves you, and take care.